Michael, what's the latest that you're hearing on whether this Joe Biden statement will happen or not?
Well, it hasn't been postponed or cancelled officially at this stage, Miriam. Good morning to you. But the word is that Joe Biden won't speak until the race is called, and there is no sign of that happening. That may happen feasibly, of course, in the space of the next hour before Joe Biden mounts the stage in Delaware, but no sign of the networks doing that. They have been very cautious all day, even though, as you say, Joe Biden's lead has increased slowly but surely in all of those swing states. As we go to air, he's ahead in Georgia by 4,000 votes, in Nevada by 22,000. And importantly, critically, in Pennsylvania, his lead has just ticked over to 17,000 votes over Donald Trump. This lead happened just after midnight. It's been growing and growing and growing all day, and it continues to grow. But at this stage, no sign of the networks, no sign of anybody really being willing to come out and declare the election for Joe Biden. And to be honest, it's quite hard to see Joe Biden getting up on stage, other than giving another one of his speeches that we've seen over the last couple of days, calling for calm, urging Americans to be patient. But from all accounts, this was an event that was going to attract a lot of hoopla. Kamala Harris, his vice presidential candidate, was scheduled to stand beside him. It had all the makings of a victory rally, all the makings of a platform for a victory speech. But at this stage, according to the networks, there's no victory to be claimed.
All right, incredibly cautious there, though. What is the latest from Donald Trump?
Donald Trump has been tweeting the last couple of hours. He had a burst of tweets at the start of the day, went quiet, and I can bring up his latest contributions now. He has basically continued along the theme of the last couple of days. His first tweet in this latest period reads, "Joe Biden should not wrongfully claim the office of the president. I could make that claim also. Legal proceedings are just now beginning." To be followed by this second tweet, Donald Trump went on to say, "I had such a big lead in all of these states late into election night, only to see those leads miraculously disappear as the days went by. Perhaps these leads will return as our legal proceedings move forward." We just need to clarify there. What he's talking about there is the fact that he got early leads in some of those swing states, care of Republicans voting en masse in person on election day, only for those leads to be tailed back once all the mail-in votes, the postal votes heavily favouring the Democratic candidate Joe Biden came in. So that's just the way the electoral process works. I don't think there's any mystery, there's no conspiracy, there's no miracle about that happening, but that is how Donald Trump sees the world tonight.
And so, Michael, just before we leave you, so this Joe Biden statement, if it happens in the next hour or so, that is the key thing for us today. So your latest word on that is that it's still a bit up in the air as to whether it may happen at all?
Well, that's my reading of it. Listen, it hasn't been postponed. We haven't been told not to expect it. CBS News was reporting just a very short time ago that he was only going to speak if the race was called. Now, that's not to say he may still not speak. He could still get up even if the race wasn't called and deliver an address to the nation again, saying that people need to take their time, need to exercise caution, need to have a lot of patience. But again, quite a different setup to the more subdued settings of his appearances. Very brief appearances, mind you, as well, over the last couple of days. This one is prime time, scheduled to be prime time here. This one has live TV interest, and with 55 minutes to go, at this stage it's still going to happen.
All right, well, we will stay across that. And Michael, we'll be getting back to you, of course, throughout the day. Michael Rowland there in Washington. Well, we're also joined at the desk by international analyst, affairs analyst Stan Grant. So, Stan, what are you going to be looking for with this statement, which may or may not now happen with Joe Biden?
Well, we've already seen what Joe Biden's doing, and he very quickly adopted that presidential tone, didn't he? They talk about a presidential voice, and they very quickly get that, and that's what we've seen from him. It's such a contrast for what we've seen from Donald Trump. He will be calling for calm once again. He'll be talking about unifying the the country and the line about no red states and no blue states. That's what he's going to be talking about. The whole message from Joe Biden going forward now is, how do we get past this divided America? I don't think you do. That's the reality. The reality is there are red states and blue states, and they are baked in, and they are only hardening those divisions. Donald Trump also put together an interesting sort of constellation of supporters here. Of course, we know about the white working class that is rusted on, which is really the foundation of his base. He got a lot of non-white vote as well, about 25% according to some counts, of black vote, of Hispanic vote, and various non-white votes. So there's also a lot of people there looking for the disruption, if you like, that Donald Trump has brought to this. So when you hear, and we'll hear this from Joe Biden again, we need to govern from the centre. No, you don't. What you need to do is you need to be able to govern over the division. And the big test for Joe Biden is whether he can make that work, whether he can reach across the aisle, whether he can build those relationships, whether he's going to face an obstructionist Republican Senate like Barack Obama did. And if he does, whether he can work around that. That's going to be the test for Joe Biden. Not empty rhetoric about unifying the country, but accepting those deep divisions and governing over it.
And in terms of the balance he's got to strike with the timing of this announcement, we're expecting this statement in an hour or so. We don't know if it's going to happen or not. But the nation is calling for some sort of certainty now. So that is required, but he can't get ahead of himself in terms of declaration.
Yeah, you know, he said throughout, this is messy. And democracy is messy. You know, we're sort of at this point where, on the one hand, you get people say the sky is falling and we're seeing the end of democracy, and Donald Trump's contempt for truth and the divisions in the country show a system that's unworkable. You can look at that another way and you can say this is how democracy is meant to work. We have seen more people get out the vote. It is contested. While ever it remains civil and non-violent, then protest is good as well. That's what a democracy is meant to be. If Donald Trump has issues with the count, if he can present evidence, if he has evidence, that evidence is then adjudicated, and there is a court process, and that's how it's meant to work. You know, there are checks and balances in the system to ensure this. There may be some eagerness among some in the media to get some certainty here, but I don't think you're going to get certainty out of this result. You will most likely get a Biden presidency, but you're not going to have the certainty. Donald Trump is not going to go away. Trumpism, that movement that he has tapped into, has in fact grown. He got more votes this time than he did last time. Biden got more than he did, but he got more votes. So those issues are not going to go away either. That is the state of play in America, and that's what he has to deal with, Miriam.
Stan, obviously we'll be keeping an eye on all of that and keeping an eye also on those votes trickling in. Still a lot hanging in the balance, as you say. We're inching towards Joe Biden, of course, having some gains in those key states. So we'll continue to keep across that throughout the morning here.
Great to have Stan with us for the next couple of hours.
Yeah, absolutely. So everything seems to be pointing to a Joe Biden victory, but it's still not a done deal, though. Let's go to the man who's been keeping across the count for some 100 hours for Casey Briggs to marathon.
He's still standing.
Feels like it's only been 1,000.
So what's the very latest on, like, Pennsylvania and Georgia are the states that kind of turned toward Biden overnight. So first of all, take us to those two states.
Yeah, and just worth remembering, why is Joe Biden regarded as an overwhelming favourite here? Because he has way more paths to victory. Pennsylvania, if it is called for Joe Biden, is the end of the road for Donald Trump. And there has been a feeling of inevitability about Pennsylvania. There's a little bit of murkiness there that I'll explain in a second. There's also a possible path through the West Coast that we can talk about. So let's go to Pennsylvania, where we've just actually got another little drop of figures in the last, I think, half hour or so. And that margin has increased again just a little bit to almost something in the 17,000 ballpark for Joe Biden. What we're getting is, I think these are votes that have come from Allegheny County, which is the city of Pittsburgh in the west, where there are still almost 30,000 more votes to be counted that haven't started being counted yet, and they are, for sort of some complicated technical reasons, being segregated from the count and counted separately. And then we think there are also a fair few votes still to come in Pittsburgh. What's a little bit murky, one of the reasons, there are a couple of reasons I think networks in the US are being a little bit cautious, despite the fact that on the current trajectory, on every vote that we've seen since Election Day, Joe Biden is just increasing that margin twofold, really. There is a tight margin at the moment, and there is potential for an automatic recount in Pennsylvania if it remains fairly tight, and that would mean networks wouldn't call that race because it's going to a recount. The other issue is that there's a little bit of murkiness just about exactly how many votes are left. Both outstanding mail ballots, which are breaking very strongly in Joe Biden's favour, especially in Philadelphia and in Pittsburgh, but also how many provisional ballots, how many damaged ballots, and how many other sorts of weird kinds of ballots are left in the count, and exactly where those provisional ballots have come from. And so there's just a bit of uncertainty there. We haven't seen samples of all of these types of ballot just yet, and that's, I think, one of the reasons why there's a lot of caution about. I think the other reason there's a lot of caution about is because calling that state is calling the presidency, and no one wants to be wrong on that count.
And Georgia?
Georgia, yes, we can talk about Georgia, which, again, we've had an update just recently where Joe Biden took the lead about 8 o'clock last night, Australian time, Eastern Daylight Time. That grew to about 2,000 just in the last hour. It's grown to about 4,000 votes because this county, Gwinnett County, was the biggest county which had outstanding votes. It has now reported, I believe, the majority of those. And so there's small numbers of votes across various counties. There's some military absent ballots to come in. There's various bits and pieces. I don't think that's going to get beyond a 0.5% margin, which means it's likely to go to a recount. Probably no call in Georgia in the next day, in the next couple of days, maybe not even for a couple of weeks as a recount statewide is underway.
And how's Arizona looking?
So Arizona, there are two, both Arizona and Nevada, we're expecting some more figures. In fact, we've got some more figures from Nevada just recently, and I think we're expecting some more later as well. In Arizona, Donald Trump's margin, if I can go to it, is this is sort of the reverse of the Pennsylvania-Georgia situation where Donald Trump on the later ballots, the later counting, has tightened this margin. It's a state that's been called by a couple of decision desks in the US, but not all. So there is a little bit of uncertainty around it still, and the Donald Trump campaign certainly has not given up hope on it. That margin is now about 40,000. It has been coming down. We got an update overnight that, again, decreased the margin, but the big lot of votes that came from Arizona Trump wasn't winning them enough to close that gap with the number of ballots that are left. So it was sort of bad news for Donald Trump, despite the fact that he was starting to catch up. And for that reason, Arizona might just look a bit better for Joe Biden than it did yesterday. But again, none of the networks that hadn't already called Arizona have at this point, so it remains in doubt for that purpose. It is, however, in our numbers at the ABC because of that call from the Associated Press and the Fox News decision desk.
And a bit more detail on Nevada.
Yes, Nevada. There's a lot of states to talk about. 87% counted. We've got 1.8% is the margin. So this margin of about 20,000 votes, since yesterday it's doubled. So it's grown in Joe Biden's favour. And we still think most of the votes that are left are in Las Vegas, Clark County. It is becoming increasingly unlikely that Donald Trump wins that. It seems like Joe Biden would be the overwhelming favourite. There's still a bit of caution there. I think there's more issues with provisional ballots, just exactly where they've come from and how many are there. That gives a little bit of uncertainty. And again, I think there's a lot of caution from the US decision desks at the moment.
Yeah, and so taking all that into account, as you're going through those states, I was thinking, OK, in terms of the US networks making a call finally on something, it sounds like Pennsylvania could be a way off, sounds like Georgia could be a way off. Then I was thinking Nevada, but you said there are problems with Nevada as well. So where are you thinking in terms of states might prompt a final call by the US networks?
So I think we were all hoping Pennsylvania would be relatively clear today. The question has been Pittsburgh, and the counting there has been slower than was expected this time yesterday. And we know yesterday the Secretary of State was saying these votes will be, we were confident we'll have the vast majority of them completed by yesterday. Well, we're now into today, and it's still looking like it's a way off. There could well be, Pennsylvania's not doing updates on any particular schedule as counties count their report, and so it could well be that we get a big block of votes in the next few hours and that's resolved. Or it could well be that we don't get much for the next day and it's not resolved. It is truly an unknowable thing at the moment. But Pennsylvania has at least been counting through the night, so they are tending to sort of update, all hours of the day into the evening Australian time as well. So I still think that is perhaps a more likely path. But Nevada, Arizona, I wouldn't discount that as Joe Biden's the states that might tip Joe Biden from being the former vice president to the president-elect. And of course, we still, can't discount the fact that Donald Trump might sweep the board in what's left, or, through his various lawsuits and court challenges, have some wins. It's very unlikely for him to do so, but it is possible. And, if that were to happen, we'll still be here talking about these numbers for a very long time, because there's a lot of counting to be done and a lot of recounts to be done.